Hey, everybody. Welcome to Movie Talk. I know we usually do this on Sundays, but, well, sometimes we need change up. And I want to introduce today's special guest for Movie Talk. You may have seen her around the true crime scene with really great interviews, really great documentary approach to this. The wonderful, the stunning, the absolute best at true crime, in my opinion, Miss KTzed.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. As always, when we do movie talk, I always let the guests pick what we talk about. And if there's nothing really in particular, we just do a free flow with us, just sharing our ideas on different movie types. Uh,
I I like you're not going to believe this, but I like crime movies, like
mhm.
Silence of the Lambs, that sort of stuff. So I know it's hard to believe. I also watch a lot of true crime documentaries.
I want to peg you as a crime buff.
I don't know.
uh, uh, Before we get started any further, let's welcome everyone we have here with us today. We have Erica Lanto. Welcome, Greg Janik, Just In Music, commentator auditor. Who else? We have Parsons, Nightwolf, and everyone else here lurking. Welcome.
The gang's all here.
And oh yeah, and I have to highlight something. Greg Janik, thank you for being a member for 8 months. Enjoy my time here. Just need more chair breaks. Uh, Greg, really? uh, Katie, if you're not familiar, you know the theory as a YouTuber that there's always that one thing we'll be remembered for.
I don't know the theory. I'm kind of
No
scared
matter,
to hear it.
well, there's this theory that no matter what you do on YouTube, no matter how big you get, there's always that one little embarrassing thing that everyone will remember you for.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Well, for me, it's breaking a chair on a live stream.
How'd you manage that? It was the chair's
Well,
fault, wasn't it?
it it was like a year, not even a year ago. It was like my first year in doing YouTube. I had this old chair, and it was old. It was something I got at a thrift store, and well, I was sitting in it one night with a friend of the show, the Random Mando. At the time, he was known as
Okay.
Mando Mike. And during the live stream, because he was doing a Star Wars Q&A, not
Mhm.
Q&A, but a trivia game, the front part of my chair broke. So the legs rusted off, broke, and I fell backwards.
Oh, no.
And all you could hear me is me yelling, "Oh shit!"
At least it
My
wasn't on
chair just
camera.
fucking broke.
It could have been worse. It could have been on camera.
It was recorded,
Yeah.
and commentator auditor, because he was part of our little group, and
Mhm.
we had a tradition with our little friend group. Once we got to 500 subs, we would get roasted. And on my roast, he wrote a song of me breaking my chair
That's
using the
amazing.
actual audio.
That's amazing.
No, what hurts
So
even
did
more
he, like,
is
just loop that sound into the song?
yes.
Awesome. That's awesome. Good job. Bravo.
Well, the funnier thing is this. My mom listens to some of CA's music that I've played for her.
Mhm.
And I was like, Mom, you've got to hear this. I've played her the Broken Chair song,
Mhm.
as it's called. She listens to it and gets this big Cheshire grin. And I'm like, what's so funny? She goes, I think that's my favorite song that your little friend made. Why? No reason.
It just some things bring mothers joy. You can't explain what it's gonna be.
Oh yeah. And supposedly he's working on another one.
Oh, well, you have to definitely send it to me when he's done with it. I definitely need to
Oh,
hear that.
I will definitely premiere on the channel as well.
Awesome. Awesome.
So tell us a bit about your channel. What made you want to start your channel? And why did you choose true crime as a subject for your channel?
Well, I noticed, the reason I started my channel is because I noticed that a lot of times what the media is reporting is not exactly what happened in true crime cases. So a lot of times you'll see media reports. And then if you are a person like me who has to like just dig down into everything, you start reading the actual case files and you're like, why did the media say that? That's not at all what happened. So so that's why I started my channel. And plus I was really kind of into true crime. I think I always
Hmm.
um and wanted a hobby that was going to not cost me a lot of money, and now YouTube can cost you a lot of money, but in my head,
Oh yeah.
I was thinking as long as I don't spend any money that I haven't made from YouTube, then I'm breaking even. So that's what I've done. So any of my equipment or anything is money that I've made. Like, anytime anybody donates $2 or $5, it goes back into my channel.
Same thing with me.
Mhm.
With whatever I get, it goes back right into either equipment or records or help paying for records.
Yeah.
That does get pricey, but for me personally, because I love doing it,
Mhm.
I just love making videos. Even if I wasn't getting paid, I'd still do it. The
That
pay helps.
It's
The pay
it's,
helps,
um, it's nice
but
to
it's
feel
passion.
appreciated.
Yeah, but it's such a fun hobby to get into,
It
and
is, yeah. It's definitely a fun hobby to get into, and I love telling stories, and I think my husband was sick of listening to them, so I tell you all about it every Sunday at 4:30. I cover something. Tomorrow I'm gonna talk about the DC snipers, um, which
oh,
happened in 2002. And when I started researching this, I usually spend about a month researching before I present. And when I started researching, I'm like, oh, this will be a quick episode. Like, it's just like boom, boom, boom. This happened, this happened, this happened. And the more I dug into it, like, I think I might go 3 hours tomorrow. I'm not sure. There's a lot. I have 15 pages of notes at the moment, and I'm not done. So,
I mean, I've looked into the DC sniper from one of the channels I like to follow,
mhm.
Count Dankula, and I don't want to spoil it, but because I know how deep you had to dig to get all the info. So
Yeah.
I recommend, if you guys want a really good deep dive, go to KTzed's channel tomorrow.
Yes, 4:30 Eastern.
Oh, and we have to mention the doggo.
Oh, yeah, if anybody donates tonight, let me know. Anytime I'm on my channel, this always happens, but anytime I'm a guest on somebody else's channel, if you donate to the person who's hosting me, let me change the Zena's my co-host.
Mhm.
She's always here. So if you donate, she gets a milk bone on air. So I have milk bones right here. There. Oh, she heard him.
Oh, I have
She's
her.
ready. So yeah, if you let me know if somebody donates and I will put her on screen and give her a milk bone. Isn't that right, Zena? Yep. She thinks it's Sunday right now because it's about 4:30, which is when I usually start, and it's her nap time. Yep, it's nap time.
Now I have a little furry co-host sometimes that joins me.
Mhm.
I named her Sophie, but everyone has named her Cookie because she will eat cookies out of my hand.
Okay.
And she's a little Yorkie Poodle mix, and I call her the News Hound.
Oh, awesome. That's a good name.
Yeah. So what drove you to true crime? What, like, outside of YouTube? What about that
Well,
aspect?
it's hard to say. I was a victim when I was younger of a mugging in
Mhm.
Chicago, and they never caught the guy. So I think that, like, if I have to dig down psychologically why I got into it, I always wanted to catch that guy. Never caught him. And it felt to me like the cops just didn't care. They're like, well, he really didn't do anything except steal your gold chain and, give you a black eye. So, I don't think they looked very hard for this guy, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, and I was in high school at the time when that happened. And I think ever since then, I got really interested in like police work and crime stuff like that. I also grew up less than a mile away from where John Wayne Gacy
Oh,
operated. So when we were kids, we would ride our bikes past his house. Well, it was demolished. It was an empty plot when I was a kid, but it would be like a dare to ride your bike down that street because it was scary. Because 33 people got murdered there, and I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
And for me, this is a great segue because I want to bring something up. I've seen a lot of the the movies that are based on Gacy and
Mhm.
Dahmer, Ted Bundy, Ed Gein. Is there any that you've seen that you would say was really faithful to the actual story?
Hmm. I used to think, okay, up until less than a month ago, I thought the movie Monster was really true to theme. But then I did a deep dive into that case. And after I do my research, I went back and watched the movie Monster, which is based on Aileen
Eileen
Wuornos.
Wuornos.
Yeah. And it's not true. It's not true to theme. So there's a lot of inaccuracies in that movie. So that's what I would have said if you asked me before. I'm trying to think. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm
For me,
worried because the next case that I'm researching is Richard Ramirez, and
mm,
I'm kind of worried that's gonna get ruined for me. I hate myself, so I like to ruin stuff for myself by researching it.
uh, for me, I would have to say the only one that I feel is actually more accurate. I, I can't remember the title of it, but it was one based on Ed Gein.
Oh yeah,
It,
that's an interesting case.
uh, let me try to find it, but I I remember watching it, and it was just so faithful to not only how he kept his house, but
Mhm.
how he
And
was raised.
he only killed one person, right? He just did grave rob. Is that right? Am
Uh,
I thinking of the right person in Wisconsin?
you're
Right?
Yeah, the butcher of Plainsfield.
Yeah.
Uh, Pokey, thank you for being a member for 11 months. Wow, 11 months member, totally awesome. Thank you, Pokey. You are a great friend of the channel and a great individual, and I hope you're feeling better and doing well.
I think that means Xena gets a treat. I'm pretty sure. Um,
Yeah, excuse me.
I want to know which movie that was because now I want I want to go
I
watch it.
I'm looking it up now. I know there was one that starred Kane Hodder, and that's not the one I'm thinking of. I think I actually might have found it. Yes, it's entitled Ed Gein. It came out in 2000, and it stars Steve Railsback,
Okay.
and it was just a real faithful portrayal of Ed Gein. But the thing is, he killed two people.
Okay. I knew it was a low number. I thought it was one, but two makes sense. Yeah.
Now he was suspected of killing his brother,
Hmm.
so the body count would have been three, but they really can't determine due to the fact of, like you said, all the grave robbing he did.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's the one where it was he like made lampshades and stuff out of people's skin.
Yes,
Yeah.
he used skin to make articles of clothing.
Mhm.
But Steve
And
Railsback in it, he plays Ed Gein just as you would see him in the court case when
yeah.
they were, like that scene of him in court, just going through the photos
Hmm.
slowly, methodically. The way he talked, he just gets those mannerisms down perfectly.
Yeah. That documentary or not documentary, but Netflix came out with a limited series about Dahmer a few
Hmm.
summers ago. That was pretty
Yeah.
true to the story. It, that one was actually pretty good. Well, maybe the Dahmer one too, but the Ted Bundy
Yeah.
one. I actually went through the timeline as I was watching it, and that one was very true to form or true to the real story.
Now, do you how do you feel about them taking true crime aspects and making movies off of them?
I, you know, I don't know. I think it's it's good and bad, as most things are in life, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not a very smart person, so don't, you know, don't take anything I have to say, as canon. But I think it brings awareness to people. My whole goal, anytime I'm telling a story, is to prevent other people from being victims. And if big Hollywood or whatever can do it in an entertaining way where it might make a teenage girl not hitchhike or, check her surroundings when she's walking down the street alone or something like that, I think that's good. Um, However, when they show too much of the, you know, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just all about the blood and guts, and that's a real life case that happened as well. And I think that sort of bastardizes it, sort of, in a way. I don't know if that's the right word, but um, there's no good to come from just the gore aspect of it. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and I agree with you. And but I'm gonna have to disagree slightly when it comes to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because if you look at the original, the 1973,
Okay, I'm not sure if I've seen that one.
if you see the original 1973, it's not as bloody as everyone thinks it is because you don't actually see the blood. That's the scary part.
It's maybe it was all in my head.
Well, no, that happens to a lot of people because they say, "Oh, well, that iconic scene of
Mhm.
Leatherface putting the girl on the meat hook." They say, "Oh, you just see all this blood shoot out." No, no, you don't. There's
Huh,
blood that has been stained on the wall, but
gotcha.
you don't see that.
Yeah.
You now the later installments went with the blood and gore, but the funny thing is, Leatherface is based off Ed Gein.
Is it? Maybe I
Yes,
did know that.
uh, Toby Hooper had family in Wisconsin, and he grew up hearing the stories of Ed Gein.
I knew that Silence of the Lambs was based sort of on Ted Bundy and Ed Gein and maybe another one. Like
Uh,
they took a bunch of serial killers and kind of merged them all into one.
with with Sons of the Lambs, they based primarily off of Ed Gein and Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
You know, you got Hannibal Lecter being the charming, suave individual
Mhm.
like Ted Bundy was,
Yeah.
but then you had the cannibalistic instincts that was Ed Gein. Now, one that a lot of people don't realize was based off Ed Gein is Psycho.
Oh, yeah. That's a great movie.
Oh, it is. I love
Also,
Hitchcock's films.
no blood in that movie. You think it's blood, but it's actually Hershey syrup in the bathtub. That's the only part that has any blood in it, air quotes.
And
And
that changed cinema too, because
yeah.
before you never saw that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Although
exactly.
I do think it's ironic that Janet Leigh's daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis,
Mhm.
would actually go into horror as well.
Yeah.
But not only that, they had a little touching nod to Janet's role in Psycho in one of her films.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm. If you've ever seen Halloween H2O or 20 years later, whatever you want to call it,
I haven't seen any of the Halloween movies. I don't really watch those sort of movies,
uh,
unfortunately. I was traumatized by Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, when I was a
mm,
child, and I just never got into
I
I think it's the first one where the scene that traumatized me was when the girl is in the bathtub and the bottom of the bathtub drops out.
mhm.
I think that was the first one. Whatever that one was, I saw when I was way too young to see it, and I was probably told not to watch it, and I did anyway. And I've been traumatized every time I take a bath ever since.
I want to give a shout out to Unclean Hands. Hey, it's good to see you around. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Uh, but no, I used to be like that. I used to be terrified of horror films,
Mhm.
but I broke that habit by watching in the middle of the night the third Nightmare on Elm Street, and then I fell in love.
Yeah.
But that scene, it was just so. I know which one you're talking about. It's the
Yeah.
scene with Nancy and
Yep.
the glove comes up, and then just
Mhm.
so you don't know if what's a dream and what's not a dream.
Well, and what's weird is I look into real cases of real murders all the time. And I'm fine with that because there's in my head there's things you could do to fight back, but with Nightmare on Elm Street, what do you do in that? Like you can't prevent that from happening. It's like it's too unrealistic yet realistic all at the same time. If that makes sense, like
Oh
a
yeah.
real killer, like they get caught and they go to jail or they get killed eventually. Actually, nowadays only 50% of the time, but in the United States, but for the most part, the ones that you're hearing about, the ones you'll see on my channel, I don't like these unsolved cases, right? I like to have an ending and I like to see justice carried out. So I think I've only covered one unsolved case in the history of my channel. And there's a specific reason I did it. It's what the Amber Alert came from. I
Hmm.
can't remember her last name, but her name, the young lady's name was Amber. And I did cover that case because so much good came out of it. But it's still unsolved to this day. Every few months, I check online to see if there's any headway made in catching who abducted Amber Hagerman.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but I think I'm about to blow your mind.
Okay.
What would you say if I told you that A Nightmare on Elm Street was based on something real, not just
Really?
nightmares? Yes,
What's it based on?
it is based on an incident that happened in the 70s where young Laos men were dying in their sleep for no apparent reason.
Really?
These young men coming from Laos, Cambodia, they were telling their family, their friends that they were having these horrific nightmares and they just did not want to go to sleep.
Huh.
And in one of these cases, Wes Craven took aspects of it and incorporated it in the movie. Uh, this young man's parents were doctors, and he was telling them he doesn't want to sleep. He doesn't want to sleep. So they were giving him sleeping pills.
Oh
And he would
no.
take the sleeping pills, but he was actually cheeking them.
Mm-hmm.
And he stayed up as long as he could for as many days as he could. And then he fell asleep. His parents helped him into bed, put him into bed. And within 30 minutes, he's having this nightmare. They come in and he died.
Did they ever figure out why? Did he have some
They
sort of heart issues?
No, they could never figure out what caused it. And when they were, going through his room to see if, maybe drugs were involved,
Mm-hmm.
they found that he had hid an extension cord in a coffee pot so he could stay awake in his closet.
Oh, so he was just down in caffeine.
He was doing whatever he could to stay awake, exercise, caffeine, not taking the sleeping pills.
Huh.
To this day, they do not know what caused it.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea that was a true story. And was it just the one young man, or was it many more?
It was many
cases?
It was many. There was, I think
That
they said like 10 or 12 cases.
That reminds me of that story, and I don't remember where it's out of. I want to say Eastern Europe somewhere, but there's a story about people like in this town started dancing and danced themselves into exhaustion and died. You know what I'm talking about? Have you heard this before?
Yes.
I forget where it happened, but it sort of reminds me of that, where this thing happened. It's widely reported on. There's, evidence of it, of, records from back whenever it happened in the 1700s or 1600s, whenever it was. But nobody knows why or what happened. And a bunch of people died.
According to what I've been able to find, because I've looked into that case, I just couldn't find anything like was it some kind of like fungal infection from like the crops, because I know that tends to happen with a case of during the witch hunts. It turns out a lot of these people were just hallucinating off of moldy wheat.
Interesting.
But,
okay.
This article I found,
maybe something to do, like, how malaria or dengue fever, stuff like that transfers through mosquitoes, maybe something like that they just didn't know what it was. And it's already gone. So there's no way to backtrack and figure it out. Like some random disease transferred like that.
And with the Wes Craven Nightmare on Elm Street case, a lot of it got people from, I think they said several newspaper articles reporting on it, but it was all people trying to escape the mass genocides of the Khmer Rouge.
Oh, okay.
So you've got all these people, and they were young. They were ranging from 18 to 25.
So young, healthy men.
They were no signs of any heart disease, any blood disorders, neurological history, just go to sleep.
Never wake up.
Yeah. So that inspired that aspect of it. So, it's one of those weird things.
Yeah.
Now something else that I kind of have to ask you is,
okay,
because you brought up Silence of the Lambs.
That was my favorite movie for like that, and Fargo, I think, are my two all-time favorite movies.
Did you prefer the novel or the actual movie?
Well, I saw both of those. Is Fargo a novel too? If it is, I haven't read it. But both of those, I saw the movie first, and then I read the book. And I remember the movie more, so maybe I like that better. I don't really. This has to be 20 years ago. I read the book. I remember it was more in depth. More happened in the book, but I don't remember what. That makes sense. Same thing with like the Hunger Games. I read those books too, but when I think of the Hunger Games, I think of the movies.
See, I'm more of a, like, it's weird for me. I prefer the movie over the novel sometimes, but not all the times. Like, I love, like, Frankenstein. It's like one of my favorites. I love the book more than I do the movie.
Yeah.
But
The Shining, I enjoyed the book more, but the book and the movie are so different with that one.
Oh yeah.
So, you can almost enjoy both of them equally, but they're two totally different things, kind of.
Now,
the movie's loosely based on the novel. We'll put it that way.
So, I have to agree with you because Stanley Kubrick, great director.
Yeah.
Great attention to detail. Possible to work with.
I've heard that. Yeah. I've definitely heard that.
What you also said you like good documentaries.
Yes. I'll watch any documentary. Like that's the first tab I go to on Netflix is what new documentaries are out.
Now I remember that docu series they did on Investigation Discovery about Ed Kemper and Ted Bundy. They kind of turned it from a docu series into like almost like a TV event. They did like multiple parts.
Are you talking about I can't think of the name.
Angel of Decay is what they called it.
I don't think I've seen that. But if you want a good thing to watch, then I'm so bad with remembering names of things. I'm going to have to Google stuff. I'm going to have to. There was a Netflix, like a series that had to do with Ed Kemper and other, killers where it was about the FBI,
Mine Hunters.
Yes, Mine Hunter. Oh my gosh, that show is so good. They need to make more episodes. I love that.
I actually love how it was based. They based it on the actual
John Douglas.
Yeah.
I've read like 3, he might have more, but I've read at least 3 of his books. He's awesome.
If you're not familiar with,
when I say read, I mean listen to, because I don't read.
Sometimes you need an audiobook on those long drives.
I have a long commute to the office, so
But if everyone out there is not familiar with John Douglas,
Mhm.
uh, he is what in he went around to all these prisons and interviewing these serial killers who didn't actually have a title at the time. They were just known as killers or
Yeah.
murderers.
I
And
think he
he broke.
coined the term serial killer.
I believe so as well. And he is what inspired the FBI's behavioral science division,
Mhm.
which a lot of us might know as Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
We've all seen that show. That was based off him and
Mhm.
his work.
Exactly. And from what I understand, because like I said, after I saw Mindhunter, I'm like, who is this John Douglas guy? And I found out that he also authored books. Um, and so I started reading some of his books. And I think the first one was that I read, which I highly recommend. It was called The Killer Across the Table. Definitely listen to that one or read it, whatever. It's on Audible. I happen to know. um, but the first season of Mindhunter is based on the interviews that he talks about in that book. And it's very true. That series was very true to what I read in the book. So even though that's not a movie, I know this is movie talk, but even though it's
But
a
no, it's
TV
fine.
show, it's very true to what the actual book was written. You know, the actual person who did the interviews, who the character is based on. That's what happened.
Well, here with Movie Talk, we don't just talk movies. We talk all aspects of it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of true crime, there's not a lot of true crime movies that, lack for a better word, are actually based on truth.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate that phrase, inspired by true events.
Yeah,
I hate that.
Fargo is inspired by true events, and when they asked the Coen brothers about that, like in interviews after the movie came out and it was very popular, they're like, "Oh, we just put that in there. That's a lie. It's not it's not based on anything." Because the movies can tell you if it's not a documentary, if it's if it's not nonfiction, they can pretty much say whatever they want.
And that's always been a bitter pill for me. Is like,
Mhm.
especially when movies like this is a messed up movie, and I hate the fact that I've watched it, the Poughkeepsie tapes.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that.
It was one of the worst movies I've ever seen
Mhm.
because how it tricked me into watching it. I got told by friends like, dude, you've got to watch this movie. She was
Like
really into.
The
She's
Blair
really into
Witch
true crime.
Project. That's the Witch Project for me. I thought that was a documentary when I went to the movie theater. It's
A
not.
lot of people did, but she was telling me about it. It's like, because we both were into true crime, and
Mhm.
she's like, you've got to watch this. It's like inspired by some unknown true killer. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
And I watch it. I'm like, there's no way this could be, this could be real, because one, they're showing aspects of, actual footage
Mhm.
from the killer's perspective. I'm like, there's
Yeah.
no way a film crew is going to have that kind of footage to make a
So
documentary.
would it have been a good movie if you went into it knowing that it was not true? Like, is it
I
worth
think
watching going into it with your eyes open?
eyes open, I would say you would really have to be really dead set on when to watch it,
Gotcha.
because it does delve into aspects of true crime,
Mhm.
and how they would, they used actual statistics from the FBI, like at any given time there's 30 known active serial killers,
Yeah.
and they touched on that.
Erica in the chat saying no. It's not worth it.
It is not, but one of the craziest things is they show like him stalking a victim,
Mhm.
and like all aspects of how a serial killer would do it.
Mhm.
And they actually show him kidnapping her and torturing her and brainwashing her.
Ooh, yeah.
It
And that sort of
It's one,
stuff does happen. It does happen, you know?
and it
So
does. I mean, if you look at the case of Elizabeth Smart
mhm.
or Patty Hearst,
Yeah.
uh, the they show this, and it was just like I'm watching. I'm like, oh my god, this is just so bad, and they were just trying to make it seem as credible as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're really into like the true crime, like you would want to see how they operate. I would
Mhm.
recommend it, but
But even
make
then,
sure.
do they whoever made this movie, did they do a good job researching it, or am I gonna watch what they did and be like, "That's not how it really happens," because I know too much about true crime.
Oh, you're gonna laugh. You're
Yeah.
gonna laugh at them doing the procedurals and like, oh my, like one of the aspects is they say they had to document over 500 hours of VHS,
Mhm.
and the guy was doing it at his house, and his wife walked in on him. Okay, one chain of evidence is broken.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly. So wait, so the investigator or the killer was or like looking at his footage or like the
uh,
documentary
one
maker?
one of the investigators who worked for the
Okay.
FBI, who was going through these, they call it the Poughkeepsie tapes because it's supposed to take place in Poughkeepsie, New York, and there was
Mhm.
just all these VHS tapes.
Okay. So they
And
found the VHS tapes, but they don't know who the person was.
yeah,
That's
and
the
they have a
outline?
name, but they really don't. They don't show what he looks like because every time they show him on camera, he's wearing a mask, or
Of course he is.
you hear his voice off camera,
Mhm. So it's like a point of view, like the killer's point of
POV style, or but the guy who was working for the FBI to log all these tapes and
view. Mhm.
everything in them, he says he was watching them at home, logging them right then and there. There's your red flag.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's a red flag, and here's why. Because from reading John Douglas, I know that he had an office at home that he worked from and had files at, and this happened a long time ago, so it was like the paper manila files,
Yeah,
and one of the things that actually happened that they show in Mindhunter is his son came across crime scene photos, and it messed his son up. Like his son went into his office, which is the room that's off limits. And whenever you tell a kid something's off limits, as soon as they get a chance,
it's
the
that
kid's
golden
gonna,
rule of
yeah,
parenting.
yeah,
Never
exactly.
tell your kids not to do something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it was like, Dad, you can't go in dad's office. And the kid did. So
Well,
I don't know if anymore they do that because of chain of custody, but back in the day, they definitely, had
well,
stuff at home.
well. The crazy thing is, it's supposed to take place during like the early 2000s.
Hmm.
So,
I don't know about that. Yeah. Yeah, you
so
might
it's
be
like
right.
early 2000s, and he's supposed to be converting all these tapes into DVD.
Mhm.
You're not going to have that kind of a setup at home.
No,
Not
probably
without
not.
not without taking up a whole freaking room.
Yeah,
He says his wife just
not in the
walks
early
in.
2000s, yeah.
It's like his wife walks in and sees like 5 minutes of the footage, and wouldn't let him touch her for a month.
Well, why would she be there for 5 whole minutes? Like, if I walked in on my husband doing some sort of work like this, well, I might, but I'm me. But I see, you know what I mean? Like, if she sees something she doesn't like or doesn't wanna see, wouldn't you, like, immediately, like, close the door and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to see that," you know? 5 minutes is a very long time.
And I'm just, I went in with high hopes, but I
Mhm.
left with wanting my time back.
Yeah, okay, okay. So I'm
Well,
not gonna I'm not gonna watch that movie then.
no, it's to quote Mole Man from The Simpsons, "I want my time back." Who am I kidding? I'm just gonna waste it anyways.
Yeah.
Uh, now, it, beyond serial killer movies and true event movies, how do you feel about like crime movies like Godfather, Goodfellas, Casino?
Um, I like them. I grew up on, like the late 90s, early 2000s crime movies, and I can't even think. I'm so bad at this. I'm so bad at this interview right now. I
Don't
can't think of
worry.
names of things, but like Seven, I think, is one of them. And
Yes.
yeah, like those kind of movies. When they're on TV now, I'll stop and I'll watch one of those old movies. All of them had like, there was a good cop, bad cop, and they're trying to solve a mystery together. Like those kind of movies, I love those.
I have a little trick for me, and it's a little useless thing for me. I can remember the most obscure things. If you give me just the faintest of details, I can remember a name for you.
Yeah.
But I remember watching Seven as a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and it just, it was like it's something I got for Christmas because I told my brother, get me this, because I'm a horror fan, love horror movies. So I'm like, I'm hearing all these things about it. It's a scary movie, but it's not a scary movie. So I have him get it for me, and I'm watching it, and just like, I was like on the edge of my seat, not from fear, but just like, I want to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and they go through the process of solving the crime, and then, that scene, the what's in the box scene, is just classic. Was that Brad Pitt?
It was Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, and
man, Morgan Freeman was in so many of those movies.
Oh, I loved him in Brubaker. He had a small role in there, but I loved his portrayal in it. I don't know if you've ever seen Brubaker.
I don't think I have.
Based on an actual real life event of the reform of.
Oh, it looks like I would like it. I'm Googling everything you're saying. I think I would really like this movie.
Robert Redford plays Brubaker, and he went undercover inside of this corrupt prison.
Yeah.
To find out how it works so he could fix it. And he breaks character. And, when they tell him, look, okay, you guys need to go clean out solitary confinement. And the way they had it set up was just like a concrete building, no light, just a door, and then your cell. So they're open the doors out so they can get the guys out. Morgan Freeman grabs this guy who they've tortured using the Tucker telephone method.
Okay, what's that?
They would take a piece of copper wire and wrap it around like an old crank style phone.
Okay.
And then they would tie the other end of the copper wire around your toes.
Oh.
And when they would crank it, it would create a shock.
Okay.
And there's a scene where they do it in there. They go to this one guy and they say, "You got a phone call." And he starts freaking. He's like, "What do I do to get a phone call, man? I didn't do anything. Yo, man, what do I do for a phone call?"
Yeah.
And they just would crank it up on you.
They're lucky it was just their toes. I'm just saying.
Well, they would, it would be enough to just, it messed the guy up the next day.
Yeah. I'm just saying I can think of other things that could wrap that copper wire.
I know. A lot of us fellas are just clenching it a little bit tighter now. But he has this scene with Morgan Freeman because he's going to kill this guy. He's like, "I'm the new warden. What's your demands? We're negotiating here." And he's like, "I want it painted. I want this painted. I want to be able to go outside. I want a skylight." He's like, "Okay, show me what the skylight you want, and I'll put it in." So he tricks him into shoves him in, closes the door behind him. He's like, "So we're going to paint this place?" "Yeah. What color?" "Whatever fucking color he wants." And you have to watch it. It's one of those really good. It's got a phenomenal cast. Joe Zito's in there. Robert Redford, Yafakoto.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It looks very similar to Escape from Alcatraz, which is a great movie that I love. But just as far as the ambiance and On IMDb, it has all the photos or whatever. But as far as the style and the, you know, cinematography and that sort of stuff,
I
it
don't know.
looks like I would really like it.
It's one of my favorite movies. I highly recommend people to watch it because
Mhm.
it is actually faithful to like a ton. There's not a lot of liberties they take, but the liberties they do, it blends in perfectly.
Yeah.
So you would think it actually happened like that. Uh, how did you feel about I'm gonna bring up this one, Goodfellas.
Hmm.
Based on Henry Hill's case.
Hmm.
How did you feel about that one?
I never
If you
researched the actual case, so all I know is the movie, and I haven't seen it in a very long time. So I'm refreshing my memory. Um, I see. I don't know what the real case was, so all I have to
uh
go on is the movie.
he uh he basically made his way up into the mafia
Yeah.
and got busted and ended up doing time, so he cut a deal for witness protection.
Hmm.
But it goes throughout his entire life, up
Yeah.
to that point. And I always thought it was really good. But
That's another one I have to go watch again. I haven't seen that in years. That was a really good movie.
what about Blow? Have you seen Blow?
I have not.
Oh, that
Blue,
is
like
a
BLUE?
Blow, like
Oh, Below. Yes, I have seen that. That's another. I don't. That's another one I saw probably 20 years ago. That's the heroin smuggling one, right?
cocaine.
Was it cocaine?
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Boston George.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's a very good movie. I remember seeing that one a while ago.
I have something from Jared Reed. Have you watched Molly Mulligan? I have not. Have you?
I have not. I've never even heard of that.
I have never seen that. And I love Low because they actually sat down with, George, and they were faithful to the events,
Mhm.
especially how the one thing he cared about most in life, his father, his daughter.
What is Molly McGuire's about? Is this something I have to see? Let's see. IMDb. Oh, this is another older one, 1970. In 1876, Pennsylvania, a group of Irish immigrant coal miners uh, began to retaliate against the cruelty of their work environment. So that sounds like it's a company town or something like that they start revolting against.
Oh, it was filmed where he
Sounds
lives.
sounds interesting. Sounds like I might need to see it. I should be taking notes on all these movies I need to go watch.
Uh, so, what is an aspect for you that makes a truly good true crime movie? Is it
Suspense. Well,
the
well,
suspense?
it's not necessarily a true crime, but a movie about a crime. But like for instance, we talked about Seven. The suspense of that movie, the suspensefulness and the way they tell the story and they draw it out and it has a conclusion. That's what I think makes for a good crime movie. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, it starts out with this like this is just any particular like any movie. Starts off with the first scene is the cop, the main character walking in on a crime scene. And your first thought is, well, what the heck happened? And then they start digging into it and you just uncover more and more and more and more until they get to the end where they figure out who did it. Maybe the killer and the cop have a back and forth where they're taunting each other. I like when that happens in a movie. Um, and I like when the bad guy gets caught. I don't like rooting for the bad guy because sometimes you find they create movies where they make it where you're trying to figure out why do I want this guy to get away with it. I don't like to feel like I want the bad guy to get away with it, especially when it has to do with murder.
And I totally get that because, like I said, I'm a horror movie guy, and
Mm,
I hate what happened with the slasher genre. It had such potential,
mhm.
but it just later on started becoming about how more crazy and elaborate the kills could be instead of the story,
Yeah.
the scare. You know,
Mhm. Yeah, I don't like the jump scares. I like the more suspenseful type of movies,
and I think that's why I liked Hannibal so much because
Oh,
it it,
that's a
it
good one.
kind of it made me feel like I was rewatching Silence of the Lambs,
Mhm.
but yet it was just like it picked up right where it perfectly left off. Just,
Yeah.
but I did not like Red Dragon. I felt Red Dragon was more
I know I
of
saw
that.
Red Dragon, but I don't remember it, so maybe that means I don't like it?
Red Dragon for me, it felt more like they were trying to cash in on
Yeah.
the Hostel and Saw kind of
Mhm.
style movies.
Well, Red Dragon was the first book, I think. So they just went out of order. Like the I think Silence of the Lambs was the 3rd book in a series of 3 books, and they just went backwards. Like,
Uh,
they were like prequels, weren't they?
it, it starts off. I know the cinematic universe starts off with Silence of the Lambs,
Mhm.
and the prequel will be Red Dragon,
Okay.
and then the conclusion would be Hannibal.
Okay. I knew they were out of order. I just when you
So
say Hannibal, that scene of him eating his own brain is the only thing I can think about. That was a very, very shocking scene.
there was a deleted scene of him actually feeding the
That's the
brain
that's the one I'm
to
talking
the little
about.
kid.
Oh, to the kid? No, I didn't see that scene.
All right, if you get the DVD and you go to deleted scenes, there's
I
an
I
extended scene of him feeding
I bet
part
I
of the
can find it.
brain
I'll find it
to the
online.
kid
Yeah.
that's on the plane with him.
Wow.
He's like, "Oh, these are figs, and this is this type." He's like, "So what's that?" He goes, "That."
Oh, maybe I did see that scene. It's ringing a bell now.
Now they left some of it in,
Oh, okay.
but if you get the deleted scene or the extended scene, it's him actually feeding it to the kid.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know why anybody would eat any brains, let alone human brains. Like,
Well, I do know they're
you
a
know?
delicacy in some parts.
Yeah, not for me. That's all I'm saying. That's just not for me. I'm more of a chicken or beef type of person. I don't want anything exotic at all. Not at all.
What about alligator?
I've had alligator. I wouldn't order it if I had a choice, but I've had it. I've had the turtle, I've had different things. I would prefer just regular, just basic food.
Now, I know this is kind of off topic of what we were talking about, but I want to get your take on this because I've seen a lot of true crime YouTube channels blow up and
Yeah.
just flood the market.
Mhm.
Do you feel there's just somebody just trying to do it because they have a love for that particular topic of trying to educate people, or do you think it's a lot of these who just throw stuff out there are just doing it for the attention?
I don't know. I don't watch a lot of there's a handful of true crime YouTube channels that I watch. And they get recommended to me all the time and I'll start, I'll click on it and I'll watch a few minutes, but if the person is not entertaining and not grabbing my attention, I'd rather see that story from somebody who is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I just won't watch it. And most true crime is they either do a 10-minute video where it's not telling you the whole story. I prefer a long form content where I'm getting all of the details. Or um, so they're either compacting a case that should be hours long, or they're drawing it out so much where they turn it into multiple episodes. And I like a good hour or two of the whole story, put it in there. Some cases might require more, but for the most part, and I want somebody who's engaging. So
I can,
besides KTzed, obviously, do you have a favorite true crime podcaster or YouTuber?
uh, the Casual Criminalist.
I do like that. Yeah.
I
That's the one I
love
watch.
I love his take on how he goes into them.
Mhm.
He, you can actually see he does the work. He puts the research into it, just like
Mhm.
you do.
Mhm.
But then if you listen to the podcast version, you can see him cutting up and having that fun. But
Yeah.
I still like him doing the YouTube and the podcast because it's just the same thing, but just a little more extended and
Mhm.
like you see his personality come out.
I like him a lot. I like the casual criminalist also because he tells the story for how long the story needs to be told. He doesn't set a time and then fill it in. Do you see what I mean? So
Yeah,
some of his episodes are 30 minutes because that's how long it takes to tell a story, and some of them are 3 hours. I think there was one recently that was like almost 4 hours, but that's how long it takes to tell that story that he was telling. So that's kind of what I do as well. So some of my episodes are an hour, some of them are 3. You know, it just depends on how long it takes me to tell the story.
uh,
Crime Weekly is another one of my favorites. With Stephanie Harlow and Derek
mhm.
Levasseur. They have very in-depth research and they take their time to tell a story. They do go a little overboard with the number of episodes they draw it out to sometimes. But other than that, it's a good listen.
Now I have a question. I know a lot of people probably haven't seen this movie, but have you ever heard of a movie called Frailty?
No.
Uh, it's a mid 2000s movie starring Bill Paxton, where he's playing the son of a serial killer.
Okay.
And he goes into this. Well, Bill Paxton actually plays the serial killer, but Nathan McConaughey's in it, and he plays the son of
Okay.
Bill Paxton. And he goes into this police station. He's like, I need to confess about these crimes that my dad's committed. He had me and my brother help him.
Oh wow.
And he goes into this thing about, well, why did your father do it? Like, my father thought he was getting messages from God.
Yikes.
And he, his wood cutting axe and these like work gloves he had were to, he'd put them on
Mhm.
and he'd be able to see the sins that this guy's committed or this woman's committed. And the axe was to kill them because they weren't human, they were demons.
So kind of like a Dexter scenario, except he was incorrect. I assume these like the people he was killing were not demons. I assume
No, they were just
normal
regular
people.
people.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil the ending because the ending is just so out there.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those movies that you have to watch.
Okay, I'm gonna put it on the list. Frailty.
Let me see when it came out because
So far, I have Birdbacker, Molly McGuire, and Frailty on my list to watch. Movies I haven't seen that I need to see.
excuse me. What are some really good movies you could recommend that are true crime inspired or crime inspired?
It's definitely 7 if you haven't seen that one. The Lovely Bones. I like that movie a lot. It's got Marky Mark in it. What else? Silence of the Lambs, Fargo. And these are not necessarily true crime. They're just crime movies, by the way. Although I think The Lovely Bones is based on a true story, I think. I'm not even sure. I should look into that. If it is, I should cover that. I can't think of it anymore right now. Check out those 4 though. Check out they're all 4 of those are good.
Now, is there any aspects of true crime that you don't feel comfortable covering?
Kid stuff bothers me, but I'll still cover it. I just covered Jessica Lunsford last week. What am I talking about? Yeah. But it makes me uncomfortable when it's kids with sex stuff involved.
I can understand that. I think a lot of us can.
But some stories need to be told, which is why I covered Jessica Lunsford, because I don't know if you saw last week's episode, but that case led to a bunch of changes in child predator laws. And I think those stories need to get out there, because you see, like, oh, well, we have Jessica's law in the book. And everyone's like, well, who the heck is Jessica? I want to tell people who Jessica is and what happened to her, why we have these laws, and why it's helping. Like, her dad's whole mission in life after she was killed was to get to save other children. And he's done that. And he's an amazing guy, so.
Similar to John Walsh with Adam.
Exactly. I covered that case as well. And the cases that really made a difference, I covered the John Walsh, I covered the Amber Hagerman, which is where the Amber Alert comes from. These cases, it's such a loss, but the fact that there's some good that comes out of it kind of puts a silver lining on it. Not that it's ever good that a kid gets murdered, obviously. But if I can see, if my child was murdered, I think I would be exactly the same way as these parents, where I need to have something good come out of this, because otherwise it's just all grief and tragedy,
Since we've brought up Adam Walsh and, Otis Toole, yeah. I have to bring this one up. Henry Lee Lucas's film they did on him, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
I don't think I've seen it. I may have. When did that come out?
80s.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen that.
It's got Michael Rooker in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be all about his life. Not all about his life, but how he and Otis Toole were.
They confessed to like hundreds of crimes that they didn't commit.
Yeah. And, when Henry Lucas did actually, confess to stuff, he confessed to like over 100 different murders.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they can only prove like 32.
Yeah. And even those are somewhat iffy, because the cops, when you actually dig down into it, and I did very peripherally when I covered Adam Walsh, just because he's obviously tied into that story. But when you dig down into it, into the interviews and stuff that the cops were doing with this guy, they were feeding him information. And if he would get it wrong, they'd be like, oh, are you sure? And then he'd guess something else. And then they would, put the solved case or the solved stamp right on that case. So some of them that I really think some of them that were proved that he did, I don't think he even did some of those. Some of them, obviously, yes, but not all of them.
Well, they kind of touch on like the whole thing that he confessed to, like, oh, well, I use different methods. So that way y'all could pin it on me.
Yeah.
Because there's the scene of him and Otis in a park watching somebody get mugged.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Parsons. If you haven't know, I have a movie channel on Rumble where I play movies Monday through Saturday, and I played what can only be described as a poorly written crime thriller known as Malibu Express.
I think I've seen that movie, and I think it's hilarious. It's funny, right? It's a comedy?
It's not really a comedy. It's supposed to be like an action, like a cop thriller, but it's
I'm
awful.
thinking of Pineapple Express. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is,
wrong movie.
I kicked that week off with Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
Okay.
Which is in the same universe.
Yeah.
But yes, it was boobies and butts. That's what it was about. It was an Andy Sedaris film, and it's about these DEA agents who go to Hawaii to crack down on drug dealers, but it was like crazy over the top. The most iconic.
So don't put it on my list of movies I gotta watch.
Well, if you want a good laugh, because I recommend it if you want like a bad movie to laugh at,
Okay.
because
So it's
there's
so bad it's good.
there's an iconic scene in that movie of the two DEA agents killing an assassin who uses a blow up doll and skateboard.
What? Okay, so it's that kind of movie. I got it.
Yeah. Let me see if I can actually find that scene because it's hilarious. Because it starts off like so innocuous, like, oh, this is just nothing. But okay, here it is. I'm pulling it up now. Hopefully we don't get popped on it. So we'll just need to pause and talk. But I'll
Yeah.
fight it. Let me see here.
We got some nutcase in front of us.
Man, he must be smoking some heavy doobies.
I mind you, this is like the 80s. I think they stopped using the word doobies back then.
Come on! Move it, Aaron! They're just up ahead. You got it, bro.
You got it, bro.
I think they're gone now.
Yep.
Okay, we have Skater. We have his blow up doll.
No
And we
problem.
have an Uzi.
Yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Look out, he's got a gun.
Oh, it's a shotgun. But wait.
Jade, how bad you hit?
I've been better, but I'll live.
Let's get that turkey.
Okay, now. Before I hit play to continue this, do you honestly think you would ever see in your life somebody use a rocket launcher in this manner?
I'm gonna guess no, but let's see it.
Wait for it. Gotta take out the partner too.
The bazooka, Rowdy? It's the only gun I can hit a moving target with.
Why?
That was insane. I don't think that the rocket launcher would explode hitting the blow up doll. It wouldn't have enough. I don't know how RGBs work. I don't know how they work.
I
but
don't know either.
I think they have to hit something, right? I don't think there's enough mass to the blow up doll for that to happen. I'm not sure.
And to answer Erica's question, it was the Lost Empire. Another one of the bad movies I play. I tend to go for bad movies. I like us to laugh at them, to rip them.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of these 80s action movies were just ripe for that.
True. So you asked me about favorite movies before, and another one
Mhm.
that I want to mention is 1 Hour Photo. Definitely
Oh
check
my
that out. That's like a really good
Creep me
movie.
out.
Yeah.
That movie creeped me out because I love Robin Williams. I think he's
Mhm.
like one of the funniest guys who's ever lived.
Mhm.
But then you see him in that.
He plays
Insomnia.
such a good creepy guy. Yeah, Insomnia is another great movie. Yeah. I
Like,
forgot about that one.
I watched that movie and I was like, oh my God, he's just so obsessed. Like, no matter what he was doing, if that family came in,
Mhm.
no, I'll take care of him. I'll take care of him. Dude, you got like 80 things of film to develop. Don't
Mhm.
worry, I got this. Don't worry about it.
Well, and the other thing, these are movies like Insomnia and 1 Hour Photo. They're movies that are not necessarily based on a real crime, but it could happen. It's aspects of things that did or could happen. You know what I mean?
Yes. And and see, and I remember him in what is it, Law and Order SVU, where his episode was inspired by you know the torture experiments they did at, I think it was MIT or Stanford, something like that.
I don't know which episode. I don't recall the episode.
It was
What was the experiment?
What, like, the experiment was they would torture these. They would have two students, and they would ask them a question.
Oh, is it the one where they got electrocuted, but they weren't really getting electrocuted?
Yeah, they would just tell them to scream.
Yeah. Oh, I really should start doing episodes on this sort of stuff, because the prison experiments, that experiment, which I can't think of the name of off the top of my head, somebody in the chat will know. The one Ted Kaczynski was part of a experiment like that.
Yeah, he was a part of MK Ultra.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but he was part of a experiment at Harvard, I believe it was, where they basically talked him up for this is like a long-term experiment. And then all of a sudden the person who was running the experiment, the professor or whatever, started, like, anything he said was wrong and, like, just broke him down. Like, it was messed up what they did to these kids. And keep in mind, Ted Kaczynski was a child when he went to college because he was so advanced. He ended up going to Harvard at like 16 or something like that. So they're doing these experiments to a 16-year-old, not even college age student, and it obviously messed him up, and people died because of it, in my opinion.
Because here's one of the things is, I love Count Dankula. He's like one of my favorite YouTubers.
That's so interesting. Like, I didn't know that about you, but I was surprised when you said that earlier. I'm like, oh, I didn't know people even knew who that was, except in my circles.
I love Count Dankula. I love Absolute Mad Lads.
Yeah,
I loved his coverage on what's his name? Ken McElroy.
Okay.
How he covered that case. But he covered Ted Kaczynski, and there was stuff in there that I didn't know happened. Like, when he was in the University of Michigan, they messed with him because of MK Ultra was doing an experiment on him there. And then
it doesn't surprise me. I haven't done a deep dive into Ted Kaczynski, but that does not surprise me. I did read his manifesto, though. It's not all crazy, is all I'm saying.
I mean, to quote Dankula, there's some base aspects to it, but it's not all bad. That's all I'm saying. He had some good points.
He did have a couple of good points. Yeah.
To quote Falcon from Falcon and Winter Soldier, he's not a line, but he's got a point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying he should have been killing random people. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, read the manifesto and tell me what you think.
But Ken McElroy's case, have you covered that one yet?
No. Is
that
the one in the small town where they end up, everybody kills them at the same time and then nobody saw anything?
Yeah, the perfect murder.
Yeah. I know I've researched that case, or I've done a deep dive in it. I just haven't covered it yet.
Oh, I mean, I just loved, like, all right. Ken Rex McElroy was like the scumbag of all scumbags.
Mm-hmm.
He tortured an entire town to the point where not even the cops would deal with him.
Yeah.
And he had the scummiest mafia lawyer you could find in the Midwest.
Yeah. He was in like Kansas or something, right?
Missouri.
Missouri, okay.
So
Kansas and Missouri are really the same place in my head, so that's fine.
He tortured, he forced a cop to retire. He had his lawyer who convinced one of his victims, who was only 14, to marry him so she could not testify against him.
Yeah.
So
And what's interesting about that case, which if I do cover this case, I'll probably tie this in, but one of his victims also was a murder victim of somebody else. Um, this woman, I can't remember. I'm really bad with names. If I don't have notes in front of me, I have a horrible memory. And like I said at the beginning of the show, not only do I have a horrible memory, but I'm not that smart. But in that town, it was a very small town. I want to say it was like 1,000 people, if that. But one of his victims also, this woman like catfished her for this like they met online for some puppy puppy breeding Facebook group or whatever. This is how they met. And this woman drove from a different state to this woman who was also Ken McElroy's victim, and cut her baby out of her and murdered her and stole the baby. And that woman is one of the first people in whatever state she came from, which I can't remember, maybe Kansas, who knows. It was across state lines though, because it was a federal case, but she was put to death. I think she was like either the first or one of the first women put to death under federal laws. And it happened recently. Like not the murder, but the death, like the execution happened within the last couple of years.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look into that because that just sounds right up into my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But the whole case of Ken McElroy in this town, nobody could figure it out. Like, well, you were there? Yeah. So you saw what happened?
Didn't see anything.
No.
Yeah.
No. Oh, I heard the gunshot. Really? From what side? Outside?
No idea.
Where were you? I was there where the gunshot happened. Okay, but where? In Skidmore. What more do you need, man? I'm going home. To this day, they don't know who did it, and if they do, they ain't talking.
Yeah. Okay, the woman's name was Bobby Jo Stinnett. The woman who was murdered, and she was murdered in 2004. And her killer was Lisa Montgomery. And Lisa Montgomery was just recently executed. Let's see. Why doesn't it say when she was? Oh, she was executed in 2021. So that's relatively recently in my head. I'm old, so 2021 is recently, right?
How do you? This is a weird question, but how do you actually feel about some of these movies, for lack of a better word, that just glorify the serial killers?
No. We can't be doing that. It creates copycats. We don't want that. We want the serial killers to look like an absolute a-hole. And we want people not to want to emulate them.
Now, this is a question I get asked all the time, just as being a horror fan and being a true crime fan. I think this would be a good question to ask you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel violence in media causes violence in real life?
No, and neither do video games. Not at all. I don't think so.
And I agree, because I remember being asked this question many times, especially in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I had this stuck-up TV productions teacher, and I would be just fascinated. Like, I wouldn't say I would read Fangor, but I would talk about upcoming horror movies and which ones I've watched over the weekend, and I would get asked this, like, so she's gonna become a violent killer? There's all. It's just like, no, I'm not.
Millions of people watch those movies. Millions. So why don't we have millions of killers then?
And I played the violent video games. I played stuff like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, GTA. I've played Saints Row, but yet all the time it's like they would ask me, you play these violent video games, you're watching these violent movies. Don't you think that's going to change you? You're going to be desensitized to violence? No, I don't think that's. I don't think you would ever get desensitized from violence unless you are, absolutely devoid of a human soul.
Yeah, exactly.
I enjoy the escape from reality.
Mm-hmm.
Would I go out and do that kind of thing? Hell no.
No, absolutely not. Most people would not. Most people can understand that it's an actual movie and not real life,
Because I would get
but there are cases where the killers end up being teenagers whose brains are not fully developed, or young in their 20s or whatever, young 20s, who watch those movies. But is it that they watch those movies because a lot of people watch those movies, or is it because they didn't receive the correct mental health help that they needed in their life?
Because I'm of the mind you can't censor art. Don't blame the artists. Like Penn Jillette said, you don't blame the artist, you blame the killers.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
He brought up a valid point. We're going after our children for the art they love.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it now, it's video games.
Yeah.
When we were growing up, it was movies.
Mm-hmm.
In the 50s, it was comic books.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact that, a lot of people were going after comic books because of some guy who really should have been questioned on his scientific method of how he conducted his experiment.
Yeah.
If you ever heard of the book Seduction of the Innocent,
I don't think I have.
This German psychiatrist wrote this book saying that the rise in juvenile crime was all because of these kids who were reading comic books. And they were reading stuff like, the old EC horror, like Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror.
Yeah.
The true crime comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Peter says Jack the Ripper never watched violent video or played violent video games or watched movies.
I mean, he probably read some Shakespeare, saw some plays, and we all know Shakespeare's one of them crazy guys.
You need to ban Shakespeare from public schools, obviously. Well, they tried to blame Columbine on Marilyn Manson, or the West Memphis 3 on heavy metal music or whatever. They always tried. They don't want to believe that some people are just evil, so they try to place blame on something that's not to blame.
It's kind of like that meme. The mom yells at the kid because the kid says he's depressed, takes away his phone, he's more depressed. It's got to be video games. That's like this meme from Drake and Josh. I mean, it's just I don't get it. Especially now with the birth of the internet. Violence is out there.
Yeah. Like nowadays, people can go online and watch that case that happened recently where that guy in Pennsylvania, I think it was, decapitated his dad and had this whole manifesto that instead of writing it down, he uploaded a YouTube channel and held his dad's severed head up to the camera. I watched that. You can get that online. You could watch it right now. You want to see decapitations in the Middle East, you could watch that online right now. So nowadays, it's not even movies and stuff. Why aren't they blaming the actual violence,
And I agree. I mean, they should blame the actual things out there, Maybe it's not the most popular opinion, but maybe if we'd actually sit down and talk to our kids instead of
putting video games in front of them. Here, watch this TV show. Mama's busy.
It's that, well, it's not my fault. Wait a minute. He played Call of Duty. It's the Call of Duty's fault.
It's got to be. Yeah.
That's it. It's not the fact that I ignored his cries for help.
Mm-hmm.
But you played the dang video games.
Yeah.
Outside of true crime and crime movies, is there any movies out there that you consider a guilty pleasure?
I like comedies. Sometimes you just need to laugh, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I do enjoy a good comedy. I'm trying to think of one that I've seen recently. I'm so bad at this game. I can't remember things. I did too many drugs in my youth. My brain doesn't work. Anything with Kevin Hart in it, like any of those kind of movies, I like. You know.
Erica has a question. Do you like romance?
Rom-com sometimes, I guess. Not like the sappy romance stuff. No, get that away from me. It's unrealistic. But some of the rom-coms, I guess. If they make me laugh, I'll watch them, you know. How about you? Do you watch those kind of movies? Did I lose you? Are you still there? I guess it's my show now, guys. We can't hear you at all, NCR. So I'm just going to do a little filibustering. So I think we were talking earlier about the movie Blow, and what I was thinking was about heroin, but the movie I was thinking of was the movie Traffic, which is also from around the same time period, I think around the 2000s. And this one was a very good movie that I highly suggest, but it was about like the government, the president or whatever. They realized that there was a big problem with drugs coming into the country. So he made a drug czar. And then turns out the guy who he made the drug czar's daughter was addicted to heroin. And it was like, I want to say, I'm trying to remember exactly what the plot was, but I think there came a point in the movie where he was going to have to either step down from his job or turn his daughter in or something like that. But it is just a roller coaster of this guy getting this promotion to being the drug czar. And then what other movies?
I'm
You're back.
so sorry about that. My mic got unhooked from behind my desk. I'm trying to get the...
That's okay. I took over. It's fine.
But I was able to hear everything. So
this same thing literally happened to me on my last show where my mic went out right as my guest was coming on. And Frank, who's a wonderful guy, by the way, check out his channel. It's called Let's Be Frank. But I introduce him. My mic goes out, and I went back and listened to it after because I couldn't hear him. My headphones went out too. And he did a wonderful job filibustering for about a minute and a half. It was great.
Oh, I mean, it could have been worse. My chair could have broken.
Yeah.
Another broken chair. But to answer Erica's question, do I like romance movies? I don't like them per se, but there is one that is a guilty pleasure of mine. It's going to sound stupid, especially if you know me. You're going to be like, no. NCR, that's not you. I like The Princess Bride.
Okay.
I think it's a wonderful story. I think it's a well-shot movie.
I've never seen it. I've seen scenes from it. I kind of know what it is because how can you not? My husband likes it a lot. He says I need to watch it.
It is a really good movie, and it is based on a book series. And one of the things is the movie is, a grandfather reading the story, The Princess Bride, to his grandson who is sick.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he comes and he says, when your dad was a kid, I read him this book all the time. So now it's my turn to do it for you. And the character Wesley, or the farm boy,
Mm-hmm.
he, whenever Buttercup is her name, but this was before she was a princess, would ask him to do something, he would always respond, as you wish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she realized later on that was his way of saying, I love you.
Okay.
So one day he goes out to sea, and they say he's killed by the Dread Pirate Roberts,
Okay.
which is going to tie into a segment.
When you say Dread Pirate Roberts, what I think of is
Silk Road.
The Silk Road, yeah, which is another case I should cover.
So he's gone, and this prince wants to marry her, but he wants to wage war, so he's going to use her as a martyr.
Mm-hmm.
And it stars Manny Patinkin from as Inigo Montoya.
Okay.
Who has the famous line of "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You've killed my father. Prepare to die."
It's so that movie has so much cultural relevance that even if you haven't seen it, you know what it is. Like, that's where I am with it. I know what it is.
But one of the funny things in that movie is you have Andre the Giant playing Fezzik. This, like, you think he's supposed to be this big brute, but he's actually like a soft-spoken, kind-hearted poet.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the movie, the grandson tells the grandpa, would you come back tomorrow and read the book again? And the grandpa ends it with, "As you wish."
Yeah.
And tucks him in, and it's a really good story. It's really good. But since we brought up the Dread Pirate Roberts,
yeah,
like you said, that movie's a cultural phenomenon. It inspired the name of one of the biggest. I don't know if you want to call him a drug dealer, but I would call him an entrepreneur.
He's as much of a drug dealer as what's his name is a murderer. Why can't I think of names? The famous killer that's not a killer from California, Charles Manson.
Yeah,
he's as much of a drug dealer as Charles Manson is a killer.
Excuse me, but I love a good comedy, but I haven't seen any really good ones as of late.
But you can always go back and watch the old ones.
I love the older ones.
Like, I'll go back and watch like Empire Records or Jay and Silent Bob.
I love those movies.
Waiting, like those kind of movies. I love those movies. And you can rewatch them and I'll still laugh just as hard.
One of my favorites, and I was probably too young to watch it at the time, but Stripes.
Yeah. Yep.
I love especially the ending of the magazine montages. And that one with John Candy on Tiger Beat, Win a Date with America's New Sweetheart, Ox.
Yeah. Yeah. Comedy used to be better. Now people have to watch what they say. It was much better uncensored.
I like what
genre.
I like what Jordan Peterson said. He was asked about being offensive. He's like, well, that's the risk of having a conversation. You run the risk of offending somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with comedy is, you have to take that risk.
Yeah, if somebody's not offended, you're doing it wrong. If you're talking online in 2024 and you haven't offended somebody, you're doing it wrong. Like, I get called a Nazi at least once a week.
Oh, I get called a cop. The comment section, because I'm in the fraud industry, and I call them out. I have been called a communist.
Bootlicker is probably a big one. Yeah, I get called that too, and I call out bad cops on my channel all the time. I don't understand where that comes from.
I get called bootlicker. I get called communist. I get called, some of the funniest ones is I am Putin's secret lover. I'm Russian. I'm actually a cop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an active cop. I'm a retired cop. Parsons.
I know. I'm
just
actually researching a bad cop right now named Daniel Holtzclaw. So hopefully it'll put those bootlicker claims of me to rest because I'm covering a really bad cop.
Oh no, I'll tell you this right now, it won't stop them because I actually I've called out a bad cop before. I called out actually 3 of them in one video.
Really? You're still a bootlicker?
And I'm still a bootlicker. I'm a plant apparently by the Blue Line Gang.
You freaking fed. I knew it.
I know, just a fed boy. Yeah. Never mind the fact that I've never held a job in law enforcement, never even done a ride along.
Neither have I, although I would like to do a ride along, I think. I wonder, I live in a very small town. I wonder if they even do that.
Although it is my dream at some point on my channel to get KTzed to come on just so I can interview him.
I love that man. He's hilarious. He's like unintentionally funny. He's great.
I used to live in Polk County.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And
I would go to every one of those news conferences and watch it live.
I've played them here on my channel during my Florida Man streams.
Yeah.
Because of course that's how you have to do it. You got to do it for Florida Man.
I didn't know you had Florida Man streams. I'm going to have to pay better attention to your channel, I think, because this sounds all right up my alley. My theme song is Florida, like it's the Florida Man song. Like that's my outro song every Crime Land episode.
I used to do Florida Man streams a lot. I started getting back into them now that we have a channel that has a lot more Florida body cam footage.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need a guest for your Florida Man stream,
I will definitely consider.
Right up my alley.
Like I did one for my birthday. I played 2 videos from Florida Man, and it was just like, why would somebody say this? It was this guy was in Florida. He was a tourist from New Jersey, and he was drunk, drinking a beer in the parking lot of a.
I've seen this one.
A hotel. Banana hands.
He pissed on the side of the building, I think, or something.
This guy, he was just drunk in the parking lot, smashing banana in his hands, and they start calling him Banana Hands. Oh,
that's a different one. I'm thinking of one where the guy was like a cop in New Jersey or somewhere out east.
Oh no, this guy was
way too drunk on vacation in Tampa or Clearwater, somewhere over there.
No, this guy was hammered, smashing banana in his hands when they're asking him just to leave the parking lot, leave the hotel.
I mean, we've all been there, right?
But here's the thing: he's from Eastern Europe, I think Bulgaria or Belarus. Belarus. He was from Belarus. He's then living in New Jersey, vacationing in Florida, drinking at 4 in the afternoon.
Vodka, obviously, right?
Nope. Bud Light. One of them little Bud Light cans.
That's funny.
Eating bananas.
I'm sure he had some vodka on board too.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it, but I've played some of KTzed's press conferences and those streams, and one of my favorites is from the Bell Gang. I don't know if you've seen this press conference.
I may have. If it went viral on Twitter, I definitely saw it.
Oh no, it didn't go viral on Twitter, but this will make you want to watch it. He makes 2 mugshots kiss each other.
I have not seen that, but now I want to. You're right. I do want to.
What he did is the father and son mugshots, and the son was a drug dealer, and the dad, being a good parent, decided to, I'll let you sell drugs out of my car wash.
Wow.
So he's
I definitely need to watch that.
So he's got these 2 mugshots. He's like, all right, Dad, I'll see you later. He's got the dad's like, hey, give me a kiss. Makes him kiss and does the kissing sound. He puts on one of their chains. He starts rapping. What more do you need?
That's like classic KTzed. That's like classic.
The Pikachu press conference.
I don't think I saw. The last one that I saw was when they had there was like some big like child predator bust where they arrested like 30 people in one night or something like that. I think that's the last one that I saw.
I actually did this for a recent video. I found some KTzed clips and I had put them in because the guy went to Polk County And I said, what do you think his biggest mistake was? And I found this perfect clip of Grady G going, he decided to commit his crimes in Polk County. So I was like, so it was like perfect. I was like, what? That's just the universe giving me a sign that I had to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
But I so want to get him on just because everyone loves those videos. They love those press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
He's just funny.
Like I said, he is hilarious. Like I wish that my sheriff or whatever had press conferences like that. I would literally go like it's a live show. Like it's free entertainment, really.
Yo, man, I got the popcorn. What are we talking about today?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yep.
He actually he's been doing stuff with Chris Hansen on his new show, and they busted a guy. And
if Chris Hansen is involved, I don't think I even want to know what the guy did. Something very bad, I'm sure.
He did. But, you know, the guy was from out of state who had an apprenticeship with Harley Davidson. He's like, welcome to Polk County. You're going to jail. But, you know, Grady Judd is just one of those guys. Like, you can't explain his press conferences. You have to experience them.
He's just real. He's like, he doesn't hold his punches at all. He says whatever pops into his brain, he just says out loud.
Like, I remember one of the most iconic press conferences from when I was down there.
Mm-hmm.
A suspect had escaped from police custody. He killed 2 deputies, killed one of the dogs, and they had called in. They put the entire city on lockdown.
Yeah.
And I was in the area where the guy was. And they did a press conference because they had found him. He had stolen one of the deputies' guns. And the sheriff's, police, and neighboring agencies fired 178 rounds. And at the press conference...
Was there body cam footage of this? I think I remember this.
Because the reporters asked him, why did you fire 178 rounds? Because that's all we had.
Yes. Yes.
What the? It's like, that's like, out of 178, like 62 hit the dude.
Yeah.
And they're like,
yes.
Why'd you fire that many?
I covered the, okay, so I filled in for my friend Ed on his channel, and it had to be close to 4th of July because he was at my house for a 4th of July party, and he does a daily show. And he said, can you do my show? Cause he doesn't want to have a day where there's nothing. And he like covers news and stuff. And that was one of the stories. So it must've happened close to 4th of July. But my commentary on that was, yeah, they shot him 60 times. And then one of the deputies went over and teabagged him. Like you would when you shoot somebody 60 times in a video game.
Oh, I can't condone the teabagging. But I mean, some of the stuff I've covered when it comes to these, you know, these guys.
Yeah.
You wonder why they get into this. And I think this would be something that you could probably answer for me is, you know, you look at a lot of these frauditors. They have these really extensive, you know, criminal backgrounds. Do you feel like some of that aspect comes, you know, from, you know, their run-ins with the cops before, or is this something just they learn? I
think it's a lack of maturity. Because just having run-ins with cops before, like if you've committed crimes in your life, it doesn't bother me. If you've grown and learned from those and moved on and are a better person because of them, that's great. We can be friends, you know, but I think that they don't learn from their mistakes. And instead of taking ownership and having introspection about their mistakes, they're still trying to blame somebody else. And in their heads, they're blaming the cops for catching them doing whatever the crime was. Like I've had murderers on my show. Like if you go back and watch my episodes, I had 3 different episodes with Justin Coleman, and he killed somebody when he was 17 years old, and he served 15 years in prison, and he's a different person now, you know. And he learned from his mistakes, and he is not glorifying. He's not mad at the cops for catching him, you know. He messed up, and he's a better person because of it, you know. So I really think it's just them still trying to blame somebody for their own stupidity and serious lack of introspection.
Yeah, I figured that would be a good question to ask you, because I know when you do the true crime stuff, you look at some of the psychological profiles, and for me, I wonder this. I'm like, why are you? Is it just you've had a bad experience with the cops? Or are you just mad because of you're anti-authority? Do you have some kind of a reason behind it?
Yeah. Well, and don't get me wrong, not all cops are angels. There's
no.
I grew up in Chicago. Like it's like the most corrupt police department out there, you know? So I'm not saying that all cops are angels. I'm saying that you wouldn't have bad run-ins with, they don't just pick you randomly. You were doing something. You were doing something to draw their attention. So, correct your own actions.
I say this to people, like cops are people, and according to Tom Segura, some people suck.
A lot of people suck. Honestly, most people suck.
I think that's funny because he says it's like that's the best customer service answer I could ever get. Because he was at a movie theater and there's a baby crying, and he goes, "Some people suck." And that was the manager. He's like, "I can't find a flaw with that guy's argument."
Exactly. Some people do suck. And in any group of people, any people group at all, whether it's cops, whether it's whatever, librarians, whatever it is, some of those people are going to be a-holes. And there's nothing you try to weed them out. But it doesn't always work. And, also like a lot of times the police departments, or even the one that I just popped into my head that I saw recently, the military, just gives these guys a pass, just gives them a pass and lets them carry on. And they keep getting away with it. So the system's not going to change when the department lets it happen, which I think was happening in Chicago in the 90s. I don't know if it's any better now. I don't think it is.
Oh, no, it's still about the same.
But I mean, I lived in Chicago in the, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And haven't really been back since. I went back a few times to visit, but I really have no desire to go back,
I can tell you this. I spent 23 years in Polk County. I've seen some things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why I have an emotional support alligator.
Are you still in Florida then?
No, I actually moved back to my home state.
Okay.
Ohio, but I spent 23 years there. I've seen some stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
lots of Florida men.
Well, here's something that you'll get a kick out of. I scared the cops in the 4th grade.
Okay.
Because of being a Florida man. Well, you remember the DARE program.
Yeah.
Well, in the 4th grade, it changes, from them just giving you the coloring books to them actually bringing the cops in to talk to you and trying to scare you, which I feel that's the wrong method. Yeah, I feel that's like the wrong method. If show us the real cause and fall of what happens, you'll do a lot better. Not trying to have 2 cops intimidate a bunch of 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
So they do this thing and they say, "We're going to teach you guys something." They take the entire class out to the back of the car, not the car, to the parking lot. And there's their squad car. And they say, "If you do drugs or you start drinking and all this, just say no stuff, you're going to end up here." And you know what happens here? Nobody's raising their hand. And I have a bit of a smart ass streak in me since I was a kid. I raise my little hand up. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, you'll arrest us and then you read us our Miranda rights." They're like, what's Miranda? What's your Miranda rights? So I literally
You'd rattle them off.
I throw myself on the back of the car, put my hands behind my back, and I do this. You have the right to remain silent. Whatever you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you at no cost to you. Do you understand these rights as I've been read to you? The cops, there's two of them. The female cop that's with him is just like her jaw is open, like, how does this kid know Miranda by heart?
From the TV show Cops, actually. That's how
That was so the male is like, look at me, he's like, how'd you know that? Like, I watch Cops with my grandma on the weekends.
Yeah, exactly.
And he just got this look in his eyes like, you just little, get back in line.
Yeah. I love the TV show Cops. It's so good.
I ended my birthday stream this week with a clip from Cops.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite moments. There was this guy, he was so drunk. And he tells the cops he would take them all out being handcuffed using, and this is his words, a kung fu jujitsu backflip trick. But he says gajutsu backflip trick. And they ask him once, he goes, you don't need to worry about it. But if I had to, these cuffs couldn't stop me because I hit you with a kung fu gajutsu backflip trick. Hey, all y'all out, but you my friends and I love you. And I mean, this guy was hammered. Like imagine a real life Barney Gumble.
Yeah.
And it was him.
There's one episode of Cops, which I cannot find anywhere, but I know I didn't imagine it because my husband remembers it too. But it was the same sort of situation where the guy was super drunk, and he's walking down the street and the cops are telling him to go home and his house is like a block away and they keep telling him, just go home. You know, they know this guy, just go home. And he won't. He keeps trying to go back to the bar and they finally put him in handcuffs and he says, what am I being arrested for? And the cop answers him, for being stupid. And I cannot find I want to get that soundbite so bad. What am I being arrested for? For being stupid. Like, I need that soundbite and I know it exists and I know I didn't imagine it because my husband remembers it too.
There are two episodes of Cops, well, moments from Cops that stand out the most in my head, other than the drunk Kung Fu master, as I call him. One is the trucker who got trick rolled, and he's walking down the street in pantyhose and a leopard print unitard.
Yeah.
And the other is the guy who's interrogating himself in the drunk tank.
I haven't seen either of those, but I kind of got to look them up now.
This guy is just hammered, and they take him in, and he's doing good cop, bad cop to himself.
Yeah.
Like, he's sitting on the bench in the drunk tank talking to himself, like as the good cop. That he stands up and he's like slapping his hands like he's slapping himself. Like,
yeah,
he's the bad cop's roughing him up to confess. And of course, it took place in Staten Island,
New York, of course. Have you seen the Nikita Dragon body cam footage that recently came out in the last couple of weeks?
I have not.
Oh, you should definitely watch that. It's so good. Especially when she gets to, they have the actual body cam of the arrest, but then there's also footage from inside like the holding cell that's just hilarious. It is so funny. You should really, take a look. I didn't know who this person was until she got arrested, by the way. I'm not like a fan or anything. But it's very good.
Erica. Oh, Erica. Broken Sister, Broken Trust is a particular frauder that I trolled before.
Hasn't everybody?
Not on the level I did, because I went on his live streaming to do it.
Okay.
I went on his live stream, and to kind of poke the bear, I
Mhm.
changed my avatar from this, which you see now,
Mhm.
to this.
Nice. That'll get
So
him.
we had this huge argument of, how do I see the blue line flag? Do I see them as a gang? Is it a gang symbol? No. So you will probably remember this. Do you remember those infomercials of that guy who would sell that book on how you can get all these different loans and grants?
Yeah.
And he looked like a knockoff Riddler with the question mark suit. So I'm like, I would, if I could, like, you remember them infomercials with that guy with the question mark suit? I would rock a blue line flag suit like that every day. And he's like, "You're serious?" I'm like, 100%. So would you tattoo blue line flag on you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, so would you get a full face tat? I'm like, face tat? I'd get one on each hand, one on each leg. I'll get blue line tattooed on my knuckles. He hated it. But he would hate me even more if he would hear me make fun of him.
I'm sure he's heard you make fun of him.
Not the way I do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it on here, but I have somewhat mastered his vocal patterns.
That's amazing.
Let's just put it like that. And I've had people tell me it is eerily scary that I sound like him. Like,
Yeah.
they said, like, it sounds like you were on a panel with him.
Yeah.
So I was like, why?
Well, next time he drops the link to the live stream, you just got to put his avatar up and do his voice and really confuse him.
I don't know if it would confuse him or infuriate him.
Either way, it's good content.
I know. But we've been on for almost 2 hours. Is there anything you would like to plug?
Come watch my live stream. I live stream every Sunday at 4:30. I might change that coming up, but I'm not sure. Tomorrow I'm covering DC Sniper case, which is, by the way, a crazy case. Just nutso.
I recommend you watch it.
Yeah, after that, the 3rd, I have a Crimeland episode. The 10th is The Smooth Criminal, Behind the Music, which is the Richard Ramirez case. By the way, did you know that Michael Jackson song was written about the Richard Ramirez case?
No, I did not.
Yeah, go
Now
go look at the lyrics. I'm telling you, it's I didn't realize what I was singing when I would sing along to that song in the car. Then probably Daniel Holtzclaw later on in March sometime. And I have a Leprechaun stream coming up on St. Patrick's Day. Definitely check that out. St. Patrick's Day happens to fall on a Sunday. So I'm doing all Leprechaun crimes.
Are you going to include, if not, you have to, the crime of the little person who...
I know what you're about to say. Yes.
Who enticed women with a pot of gold for relations?
Oh, that's not what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say the hood leprechaun.
No.
No, but find that case. Find like a whatever it is about that case. I have in my Discord server a category that says small crimes. So I'm collecting little person crime cases for this St. Patrick's Day episode.
This guy, I've only saw an article of it pop up in interesting memes, and I've been it's true. A little person put on a leprechaun costume and had tricked women into spending the night with him,
thinking they were going to actually get a pot
of gold.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess that's a crime. It's got to be, right?
Yes, because it's fraud.
Yeah, or prostitution, or both.
But who would you punish? The fraudster or the
both? And punish everybody.
If you're gonna do that, you need to punch the liquor industry too.
She thinks that she's sleeping with him for money. So that's a prostitute. And he's committing fraud. Or it's a form of rape, but I can't remember. There's like a name for it when you get somebody to sleep with you under false pretenses. It's a specific kind of, I forgot, I'm on your channel, not mine. I shouldn't say words that'll get you demonetized. Like if you're still monetized after this stream, like on this stream, not your whole channel, but
Yeah.
I say the words on my channel because I'm not doing it for the money. Like honestly, I don't get ad revenue because I have a true crime channel. True crime channels just don't get ad revenue. But yeah, it's definitely both. I think are crimes, both sides of that transaction.
I'm trying to find it because the mugshot of the guy was just hilarious.
And then, of course, on St. Patrick's Day, I will tell the real story of St. Patrick as well, because I try to do that every St. Patrick's Day.
I found the mugshot.
Okay.
Here's the actual case from Reddit.
Oh,
on the Daily Reporter.
Wow.
And
amazing.
Let's pull this up here.
He actually looks like a leprechaun.
I mean, extorted 26 women in exchange for pot of gold. I mean,
you got to give him credit. Like, he's thinking outside the box.
He really wanted those Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie, for being on here. Next time I do a Florida Man stream, I will definitely have you on.
Yeah, for sure. This has been really fun. We have good rapport.
Oh yeah. If you ever want to come back, please let me know and I will schedule it.
I'll try to think of movies before we're live next time.
But we definitely need to do a Florida Man stream because we would have so much fun with that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Everybody, don't forget to go. You have a Rumble account too, right?
I do. I'm KTzed everywhere. So it's KTzed at Rumble or at YouTube. I just put a short up today. For like I try to do a little preview the day before whatever case I'm covering, and I just put one up right before we went live about the DC sniper case. And it's got my Rumble link and YouTube link in it.
Erica, I will try to come to the next game night. I promise.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. I forgot. I do a game night once a month too. It's lots of fun.
I know you invited me to the last one. It's just that day I was out. I did not get the chance to check my Discord until like after it already started.
Yeah, we've been playing the Dumb Criminals game, which is right there on my shelf. But we've started to come up with the same question. So I think we've gone through the whole deck of cards. So before next month, I'm going to have to find a new game. I'm going to have to order a new game. But it's a lot of fun for sure. Even if people just watch, like I usually have, the people who are playing have an option to poll the audience if they're not sure. And the audience is like 99% correct most of the time. So,
wow.
Yeah, I think they have a near 100% hit rate on getting these questions right.
Well, I will definitely be there for the next game night. Again, thank you, KT, for being here. Everybody, please subscribe to KTzed on YouTube and Rumble. Don't forget to go to her 4:30 live stream tomorrow for the DC snipers. You will not be disappointed on that case.
Yeah.
With that being said, everybody be well, be safe, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.